Cullen live in 1 minute. Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com.
Okay, just getting untangled here. Whoa. Hello. Good morning. Finally, a gorgeous morning. No humidity. It is so beautiful out there. So it figures Jess and I can come into the studio and the air conditioning's broken in here. It's like 110. Oh. The amazing thing is, though, is how, our bodies have somewhat adjusted to heat. So I don't think it affects me as much as it used to. At any rate, here we are, Monday, the 9th of July, and nothing specific on the agenda today, just you and me, so if there's anything on your mind that you'd like to take up, feel free to email me, Lynn at pghcitypaper.com, or call. You see the number up on the screen. Of course, if you're listening only, you don't. That number is 412-316-3381. Well, so I went to the only game that the Pirates lost this week. And what's amazing, that was Friday night. What's amazing is how despite these temperatures, in the 90s, sitting there on Saturday, for instance, a 4 p.m. game, it's amazing. The stands are just packed. It's so much fun. I've been trying to figure out the psychology of it. Well, I'm sure. Plenty of people have figured this out, of why it's so human to identify so emotionally and strongly with a team that's bearing the colors of your city, and the sort of tribalism of that. It's been pointed out many times how it's exactly the same thing that causes young people to want to join a gang. And that in a gang, they have colors. We have colors. Someone's calling. Hello? Hello?
You got a reverb going that can drive your audience crazy.
What about driving my audience crazy? I'm sorry, I didn't hear the first part.
You have a reverb. You're going... Good morning, hawa, r. Yep. A reverb.
Uh-oh.
You guys got some broadcast problem.
Okay. Well, see, Jess is saying, no, we don't. Well, he does.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Does anyone else have that? That's one way of knowing if we've got a problem or if it's his problem. Strangely, when he was talking, I was having trouble hearing him because it was loud. Yeah. But you think we don't have a problem?
I'm listening to it from an outside computer.
Okay, well, I don't know. Please let us know, and that way we'll know if it's him or us, because it's hard to note that. And obviously we don't want that kind of a problem. So anyway, yeah, this gang thing and how, and when your gang is winning, I mean, the pride you feel, the fact that you feel almost like it's you who's doing it. I mean, how you can actually feel better or feel down when they lose. I don't know. I seem to get much more invested in this team than I do even in the, I know this is going to sound like heresy, the Steelers or the Penguins. And I guess because they've been down so long, this is so exciting to see them on top. And it's very gratifying and fun. Lot of fun. So I know all of this absolutely falls on deaf ears if you're not a baseball fan, and a lot of people aren't. I was thinking, so why do I like baseball so much more than the other two, hockey and football? And I think it's also because it is not as violent a game. There's so much more seemingly finesse involved, although, I don't know, just not as much violence. And I like that. I also like the fact that it is slower paced, that you have an opportunity to let your mind wander when you're watching a game. You can do other things. There's something about the pace that reminds me of a better time when we weren't so influenced by our sense for speed. I mean, speed is all now. So that there's a sense that if you don't know something the minute it is knowable, that somehow you've been left out. And, well, and I find that absurd. Okay, so we're going to do, catch up on some of the things, comings, goings, births, deaths, marriages. The big death this week is obviously today is Oscar-winning actor Ernest Borgnine, who had was just sort of instantly recognizable. Name other famous people with that gap in their front teeth. I can think of one. She's not as famous, but model Lauren Hutton has that. And she also has a cap she can put on if, like, for whatever reason, some people don't want her with a gap in her teeth. But she made it with a gap in her teeth as a high fashion model. Who else has a gap? Locally, Stan Savran does. He used to draw attention to it on occasion. It's it can be, I don't know, there's something about it that I think makes somebody seem immediately more accessible, more human. That you know, there's no problem with being considered perfect or anything if you have that gap. Borgnine always seemed like such a good guy. And apparently from all the obits I'm reading, he was, in fact, a good guy. Another obit, someone you didn't know, Dr. Gabriel Nahas. He is somebody who spent much of the latter part of his life, and he died at 92, demonizing marijuana. That was his goal. He felt marijuana was not unlike totalitarianism. He said it enslaved the mind as much as a dictator. Now, he was beloved, of course, by the criminalization crowd. Nancy Reagan was a dear friend, and he totally supported her Just Say No campaign. He did a lot of research himself, and all his research turned up evidence that marijuana destroyed the immune system, marijuana destroyed your brain, marijuana did this, that, and the other thing. And the New England Journal of Medicine once described Dr. Nahas's work as, quote, psychopharmacological McCarthyism that compels him to use half-truths, innuendo, and unverifiable assertions. So in the scientific community, he was widely criticized and even assailed. But of course, in the political realm, he was beloved and much, much awarded. He was a decorated leader of the French resistance during World War II, just to give him his due. And he was awarded the Legion of Honor by France, the Presidential Medal of Freedom by the United States, and the Order of the British Empire for his wartime heroism. But then somewhere he got nuts about drugs. I don't know. So his conservatism on that score absolutely suffused all aspects of his work and of his life. And in the 1970s, he used his, I guess at the time he was more widely known because Nixon loved him and Reagan loved him and all of that. So he used that to sign newspaper advertisements going after opponents of the Vietnam War. So there you have it. The guy you didn't know, he's dead. Dr. Gabriel Nahas, born in Egypt, and the reefer madness guy of the latter part of the 20th century. All right, in other comings, goings, and life events, Barney Frank, the irascible member of Congress, who has said this is his last go-around, so he will only be a member of Congress until the next Congress is sworn in. He's just got maybe half a year left. Barney got married this weekend. Barney married his boyfriend Jim Reddy on Saturday at a Marriott hotel in Newton, Massachusetts, with the scenic backdrop of two major highways and a no-frills ceremony that was, I guess, attended by lots of bigwigs in the political world. But Frank had said when he invited people, don't worry, the service is going to be short and to the point. And in fact, it was. It lasted no more than 5 minutes. And Barney Frank and Jim Reddy are now legally married, making Barney Frank the first member of the United States Congress to be married to a partner of the same sex. And believe me, he won't be the last. Says here, it's he's marrying young. I mean, this guy's 30 years younger than him. Frank is 72. Mr. Reddy is 42. And Mr. Reddy, by the way, is a carpenter and a welder who specializes in awnings. I love it. In fact, his shop is called, he has a shop, and it's called Jim of Most Trades, which is cute. So there it is. He's married now, Barney. And certain members of Congress have noted that since Barney fell madly in love with Mr. Reddy about 6 years ago, it was always apparent when Mr. Reddy was in residence in D.C., because they said Barney, who was known for being an irascible coot, would all of a sudden be kinder and gentler, and they always knew. They always knew if Reddy was in town because Barney would actually smile at him in the hall. In the hall, excuse me. Okay. And I think that's it on my weddings and births and deaths. I didn't have a birth, did I? But there you have it, as far as I can tell. No one else has said we have a reverb problem, so I'm assuming we don't. Right? Is that a good assumption? Probably. Okity doke. Here's something. Since we survived that heat wave, although some people didn't. I mean, the weather that came with it, and what's happening to crops is a little unsettling. I mean, whole fields of corn are simply being plowed under in the Midwest because they're done. They're done. Ain't going to happen this year. Anyway, given the rash of wildfires that we've seen and the heat waves that we've seen and the severe storms, quickly, who can name the name of that thing that we found out, that meteorological phenomenon, which is a straight wind coming out of a thunderstorm? Duh. It starts with duh because it was like direct. Duh. It's Spanish for straight. Derecho. Derajo. See, Derecho. Derecho?
I think that's how you spell it.
Derecho. Derecho or something. Okay, so all these things that we never knew existed and I apparently are going to see more and more. Or thus saith a bunch of climate scientists. Here's a quote from a geoscience and international affairs professor from Princeton. Quote, "What we're seeing really is a window into what global warming really looks like. It looks like heat. It looks like fire." Anyway, they go on to say that since January 1, we, in the United States, there have been more high temperature records set than any other year in our history, as far as we're aware. The United States has set more than 40,000 high temperature readings since January 1 of this year. And fewer than 6,000 record lows have been set in the same period. And they say this is not the norm at all, because in a normal year, the record highs and the record lows tend to pretty much balance out. So that if you're looking at a graph, this year goes, right off the charts. Off the charts. 40,000 highs set midway through the year, only 6,000 lows set. And one of the other scientists says this is what global warming looks like at the personal level. That what we've experienced in the last week or two is going to be, I've been telling everyone, I got a feeling this is the new normal, and I'm afraid it is. That's it. It doesn't mean that there won't be some summers that are, a little easier. And if you're one of those people who likes hot weather, well, you're just going to be happy as can be, because this is the new normal. Also, in the realm of science and specifically botanical carnivores, researchers have now discovered a plant that they didn't know existed. It's a relative of the snapdragon, which consumes its prey under the ground. It has leaves that actually spread out underground, and those leaves underground are sticky, and they wait for unsuspecting worms and other underground creatures going about their daily grind to accidentally step on their sticky surfaces, and at that point they become trapped, and the plant then puts out these powerful enzymes that simply digest the worm And that is how this plant survives. It is a carnivorous plant. The guys who found this, they found it in Brazil, they said they suspect that there are many probably, other plants that they've never seen that are yet to be discovered that use this same kind of method to kill and consume their daily bread. And, so often, you forget that there are plants that are carnivores. And while we knew about, the Venus flytrap and those kinds of guys, they did not know of this plant that goes after creatures living underground. Okay, so that's your botanical note for the day. And now on the fauna end, a microscopic fly has been discovered, ladies and gentlemen. What's so weird is we keep discovering other things that live on this globe with us. And it obviously, with every new discovery, you have to think, just how much of this world that we live on do we not have a clue about? If we're still discovering other creatures, maybe we only know about half. Maybe we only know about a tenth. Who knows what we know? Not as much as we think. Anyway, so this is the smallest known fly in the world. This thing has been discovered in Thailand, and scientists are all agog over it and are desperately trying to find out more about it. They don't know much, but here is what they think. First of all, a no-see-um, those little teeny weeny, that's what some people call them, no-see-ums, little teeny weeny gnats. These flies that they have just discovered in Thailand are easily just half the size of those no-see-ums. That's how tiny they are. And what they think is their life cycle. Listen to this. This will blow your mind. They have on their teeny weeny little tummies a point. There's like a sharp point on their abdomens. And scientists think that they use that point, this little teeny weeny fly, to pierce the body of an ant, and then through the resulting hole, lay their eggs inside the ant. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. So their eggs in the ant's body hatch, and the larvae, get this, start munching on the inside of the ant. They're in the ant. They start eating the ant from the inside out. And specifically, they eat the muscles holding the head to the body. And what eventually happens is the ant's head falls off. And the larvae are able to fly out. Do you believe that? You can't make that stuff up. God, the stuff that goes on in nature. My Lord. Yep. The smallest fly in the world, they think, makes its way by laying its eggs inside the body of an ant. The larvae then feed on the ant's head muscle tissue until the ant's head falls off. Jess is getting ill. Fascinating.
It is.
It's just fascinating. Woo! What is more unbelievable than nature? What? Come on. I defy you. That's why you can't come up with this stuff. All the stuff of like horror films exist in nature. Hello?
Hello, Lynn. Palm Springs again, no reverb, and I'm trying to hold down breakfast.
Isn't that amazing, though?
Yes, it is, but yet I don't really like thinking about it. I just don't like thinking about the fact that I have head lice in my eyebrows, you know? Everybody has them. I just don't like thinking about it.
Oh, why? You think ignorance is bliss?
Well, not so much that. It's just, knowing about it. Sometimes you just get a little bit OCD and start to shampoo your eyebrows one time too many or something. I don't know.
God knows what's... Oh, my God. God knows what's in your eyebrows. God knows what's in my throat at the moment, too.
Well, I don't know what's in your throat, but I don't want to know.
No, that's even more disgusting.
But I do want to apologize for Tuesday. I called in, and your sister tried to say something. I can barely hear you on the phone.
Uh-oh.
And she was trying to say something, and I didn't hear it and didn't recognize it, so when you talk to her tomorrow, apologize for me.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Okay, so there's something when then we have another call. So it's Susan or somebody else is on. If there's two phones in action, somehow it doesn't, the sound must drop down or something.
Yeah, and on the phone, I really honestly have to strain to hear you.
Oh, geez. This is not good.
And it was the same, when I called in on Tuesday about 6 characters in search of an author. Oh, which is available on video. It was directed by Stacy Keach and also starred, along with Andy Griffin, John Houseman.
Ah.
It's astounding. I did order it. I saw it back when it first broadcast, but I've ordered it again off of Amazon.
Well, I saw that Turner Classic Movies on I think it's the 18th, where would that be, next week, is going to show in prime time A Face in the Crowd, which is that.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. If you've not seen it, do it. And all of your listeners, if they haven't seen it, watch it.
Yes,
it
indeed.
It is an Ilya Kazan. Jeez, what, say what you will about his politics, and I didn't totally approve of it, but he was an artist.
Yeah, obviously a great director. Not
yeah,
maybe a great
obviously
man.
A great director, and, he turned on a lot of people, but he saved himself. I have a lot of moral conflict. I don't know what I would do in that situation.
Well, you would argue, would you not, that the people who didn't turn on their friends had the higher moral ground?
I certainly do agree. I certainly do agree, and I probably would have taken that position, but not being in a position where I would be forced into starvation, etc. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a tough call.
Right, indeed. So what's the temp in Palm Springs going to be today?
Yesterday it was 117. I couldn't stand it.
Oh,
I came in and I went out to the pool, and I couldn't even get in the pool. It was just way, 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 way too hot. And today it's going to be more of the same.
117.
Yeah, it was 117 yesterday.
Jesus.
That's hot. I don't care. People can go around here and go, oh, it's a dry heat.
Well, that's what you said last time.
Yeah, convection oven. Exactly. It's hot.
It's hot.
And I miss Pittsburgh.
Yeah, and it's beautiful here today. Beautiful.
Yep, and next time you're here, let me take you to some natural, beautiful places here.
All right.
There are some gorgeous desert landscapes.
Yes, I know there are.
And some of it is absolutely marvelous.
Yeah, whenever I go there, I just end up with, wrinkled, old, rich people on manicured false,
Yep,
yep,
and everything is just beautifully green, and that's not the way it's supposed to be in the desert.
it just looks so stupid to me.
I have a couple of plants, but other than that, I keep desertscape.
Yeah.
I don't want to pay for the water.
Yeah, well, you shouldn't, and it's such a waste.
And another thing, and this is one thing I do not like about Palm Springs. All of the golf courses here, be they public or private, get to use brand new, clean, purified water.
You're kidding.
No. And all of our school children get to do their exercise and athletics on raw water.
What?
Yeah.
Well, who's
the untreated sewage water?
Wait a
They
minute.
water the school playgrounds and athletic fields with unprocessed sewage water.
Well, how come the golf course gets the nice water and the kids get the crap, literally?
Well, because most of the golf courses are private, and private people certainly deserve good water. And our public school children, of course, well, they can get by on whatever.
Well,
it annoys me.
If they're private, then maybe they do pay taxes, though, property taxes, right?
Possibly, yeah.
So, but how disgusting is that?
I don't think that it's right. I mean, it's weakening the immune system of our children who are growing up with parents who are wanting to wipe out 99.99% bacteria that's giving these children an immune system.
Well, so why wouldn't you want them to have? Isn't having crappy water building up their immune systems too?
That is too much of filth, I think.
No.
You know, there's certain natural bacterias that we all need. I mean, you know, I'm ready to get a fecal transplant. I don't know.
Can we get through a week on this show without somebody saying fecal transplant now? I doubt it.
No, well, you brought up poop earlier today.
I did?
You did. You mentioned poop earlier, and you even said, I don't know what it is. I'm always fixated on poop. I want to talk about, or was that Friday? Maybe it was Friday.
It sure wasn't today. It was not
okay,
today.
Well, I brought up the poop today.
Unjustly accused. Yes, you did.
I'm going to stir up some poop.
Well, listen. Stay out of the outdoors today. God
I
almighty.
shall, and then I'll look forward to waking up with you again tomorrow.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Oh, geez, it's only 7:30. We're in his neck of the woods, and he didn't want to talk about larvae eating ants' heads off? Hello? Hi.
Hi, Lynn.
Hi.
It's Michael Moritz calling, and I'm not listening to the show, so I don't know what you're talking about today.
You're probably a lucky man in that regard, Michael. What are you talking about?
Well, I always listen to the show in a kind of a time loop because I listen to the podcast.
Right.
And so just over the weekend, I was listening to maybe from a week ago. You were talking about the levels of water rising, and when I heard you talking about that, it made me think of I was in New York for the last 3 weeks or so, and one of the news items was that they're having problems with the subway renovation down under where the World Trade Center used to be because water is leaking in, and part of the reason that they cited was that the water level in the harbor and whatever had risen since the time a couple of years ago when they designed how they were going to redo the subway.
Yep.
So that now that they're actually working on it, the water level is higher and it's leaking in, and they have to go back and totally redesign it. So nobody, when I heard about that on the radio on WNYC, they were talking about that. Nobody said, well, it's because
global warming.
They didn't make the connection to the larger climate change.
How could they not? How could they not? Why is it rising? And they're saying that on the eastern seaboard, it is rising faster than anywhere else in the world, the ocean level, at a higher speed. Who knows why? But
well, I'm not surprised because I would imagine that there's so much what used to be frozen material right above there.
Right.
In between in the Atlantic, up above, England and Greenland and all that. That probably there's an enormous amount of melting going on this side that maybe isn't as pronounced on in other parts of or down in the southern end of the globe. There's just not as many land masses as near where that's happening as here on the.
Well, they're saying, the fact is most of these cities and states are simply not being proactive about this. They're going about their businesses as if nothing's changing, when in fact the sea coast as it exists right now will cease to exist in another, 100 years? It sure as hell ain't going to be there. So in
and maybe sooner.
And definitely maybe sooner. So I don't know if the podcast you heard was where I was saying that the Republicans in the Virginia State House had to acknowledge finally that, oops, it looks like there's a big sea level rise going on our coast, we better study this and see what to do, but we won't allow any report that comes from the study to use the word sea level rise because
that was left-wing propaganda.
That's right. Is that not? You're screwed if that's where the political leadership is. You're dead.
The same episode as where you were reading excerpts from that full-page ad by the guy from
Starbucks.
Right. Yeah, and I thought, that really does capture the problem, because one of the things that frustrates me when I'm trying to argue with people that don't get it is that what I often find myself saying is there are big problems that we need to address, and we don't ever get close to them because the dismissal of what's a good example? That let's say, okay, well, if we wanted to have real reform for healthcare, that you have to have serious conversations about what is worth spending money on and what do you have to totally throw out. And we never got to have those conversations during the healthcare debate because it was all about just trying to get something through, despite the fact that we're not allowed to debate the merit of, yes, we should spend money on this and we shouldn't spend money on that. And instead you hit the brick wall where the philosophy is anything that requires government spending is evil.
Right.
And then so we can't talk about, what should they spend the money on, and then other things that are wasteful, yes, and maybe we should revise that. But you don't get to have a nuanced conversation about what society needs.
Not allowed. Not allowed. Hey, where are you ensconced these days? In New York, or are you still in Texas?
Well, I'm still in Texas, although this week I'm in Pittsburgh for a couple of days. And then I go back to New York the end of the week, and then I sadly have to be dragged kicking and screaming back to Texas next week to resume my job down there. But I'm working on moving back here because I have a feeling I'm going to wind up being a Pittsburgh resident again.
That'd be wonderful.
As my way to get back north, back to civilization.
Yeah, get the hell out of Texas.
But I listen to you all the time, and you're my link to Pittsburgh, and I have to say how much I value that you're still doing this on the format you're doing it, and it's so accessible and so easy to keep in touch with what you're doing. And I send episodes that you do with Chris Potter to other people saying, this is some of the most entertaining quote-unquote radio there is out there, and I'm glad you still do that show with him, because that's fabulous every week, and I'm sure you know that it is, how much we enjoy it. So.
Oh, thank you. You're a dear, Michael. Thank you.
Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you. You too. Bye. Good luck to us all. To us all. That's Michael Moritz, who is just an astonishing composer, conductor, music man of note, pun intended. And, God, I am totally behind, right? I got to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com or call Lynn at 412-316-3381. Lynn Cullen Live will return in a moment.
You in the City and Hosanna House Summer Nights present Jazz Under the Stars, starring Najee, Friday, July 13th. 8 p.m. at the Sherwood Event Center in Wilkinsburg. Tickets available at Dorsey's, Stediford's, or charge by phone at 1-800-383-5760. Najee, live in concert July 13th. Proceeds benefit Hosanna House, a place called Hope.
Vote now. Who will be the chosen one in Pittsburgh City Paper's annual Best of Readers poll, and register to win a new iPad. Pittsburgh City Paper, available at over 1,700 locations throughout Western Pennsylvania, and on the web at pghcitypaper.com, and on your smartphone at citypapermobile.com.
It takes 12 years to create a graduate. It takes about the same time to create a dropout. And at the end of the day, the difference between a child becoming one or the other could be you. So United Way is asking you to make a pledge. Tutor a child who needs help. Mentor a kid who needs someone on their side. Volunteer to read to children. Because when a child advances, we all advance. Be a reader, tutor or mentor. Give, advocate, volunteer. Live United. Take the pledge now at liveunited.org. Brought to you by United Way and the Ad Council.
Have a question or an opinion? Call Lynn Cullen at 412-316-3381 or email lynn at pghcitypaper.com. Now, more with Lynn Cullen Live.
I'm such an idiot. My apologies. I kept saying, was there reverb? Is there reverb? Meanwhile, 5,000 of you emailed me saying, no, the audio's fine, audio's fine, audio's fine. And I didn't see it because I was not at the top of I thought no one was emailing me. And then I noticed that all my emails were from 1766 or something. I mean, it's just absolute. Thank you all for responding. Also, this in from Lynn in regards to how many species we're living with that we don't have a clue exist. Lynn writes, the noted biologist E.O. Wilson postulates that we know about only 90% of the species here on Earth, and most of those unknowns exist in the microbial world. Yeah, I would imagine they're teeny tiny, or where else they exist is they exist down in the ocean. And we have no way of getting down there to observe them. Although James Cameron, I guess, took a shot, didn't he? Frank Bruni, in the New York Times yesterday, is feeling nostalgic. He's looking wistfully back at the days of Bill Clinton when things were more interesting, more entertaining. Here is some of what he said. For all the stark differences in their ideologies and biographies, Romney and Obama are strikingly alike in their taut, tidy, temperate ways. Each the perfect and photogenic patriarch of a perfect and photogenic brood. Together, they foster a curious kind of longing for the Clintons, not just because the couple inhabited the White House during the last era of outsized prosperity, and not just because they still had so much baby boomer vitality left, but because they were and are such great characters and such relatable characters. They wore their flab, their flaws, and their bruises as conspicuously as their talents. Although insanely gifted, they were also all too human. Do you know how true that is? I mean, if you think about it, Obama and Michelle and the girls, they're too friggin' perfect. Their bodies are perfect. They don't have any flab anywhere. They're so... And he's sort of right in the Romney clan, too, all sort of perfectly good looking. And, at some point, Hillary and Bill were like us. Bruni goes on to say, definitely Americans suffered on account of Bill and Hillary's sloppiness, heedlessness, self-consumption, and greed. From Whitewater through impeachment, Bill and Hill abetted distraction upon distraction, undermining their own agenda. But they had fire. And he had a sort of glee that redeemed and bought him forgiveness for his many infidelities, marital, political, ideological. There's inexhaustibly riveting material in these two, Bill and Hill. There's also a capacity for risk-taking, along with a gameness and a toughness that Obama and Romney could learn from, and that the rest of us can't help missing. Just a little. I didn't realize I was missing them until he wrote that. Oh, my God, it's so hot in here. I'm sorry. I'm starting to... It's weird how it comes in waves. I was doing fine, and now all of a sudden I am literally dying. At the game Friday night, they stopped selling ice cream cones because...
It's melting.
Yeah, it was melting before people that, they'd hand them to the person, and they were already, like, dripping down. They couldn't... The woman said, I'm not selling you anymore because it's just not making it. Not making it. Oh, that feels good. Oh, that feels good. Okay. What do I have here for you? Speaking of the lack of air conditioning. Here. And speaking of Texas, both those things have come up, and I have actually a piece bringing together Texas and air conditioning. Okay, so Texas, it's hot, right, in the summer. Only 21 of the 111 prisons in the state of Texas, so less than 20% of the prisons in the state of Texas have any air conditioning. Now stop and think. Let's say you have, 100-degree temperatures day after day after day after day, which they've had. And let's say you're sitting in a windowless cell in an unair-conditioned jail. And I know a lot of you tough-on-crime types would say, well, who gives a damn? Don't let them have TV. Don't feed them more than once a day. Screw them, blah, blah, blah. Well, as it turns out, some of the inmates in Texas have literally been dying in their jails. Dying from the heat. One South Texas prison, the heat index exceeded 126 degrees for 10 days in a row. Makes the 117 in Palm Springs today look balmy. Several inmates died of heat-related causes last summer. A former inmate has sued Texas for the conditions. And obviously, you don't have to be a lawyer to know that the basis of any suit in that regard would be it's a constitutional violation because it's cruel and unusual punishment. I mean, you might be doing a 5-year sentence. You weren't sentenced to death, to die literally being poached alive. Here are some, a guy named Larry McCollum, age 58, died from the heat. Another guy, 44 years old, Alexander Kondanidze, died. Michael David Martoni, age 57, died. Kenneth Wayne James, age 52, died. All of them from hyperthermia, according to autopsy reports. One of the guys, McCollum, they finally got him to a hospital. His body temperature, get this, was 109.4 degrees. He died. And nearly 2 weeks after he died, 2 other prisoners on the same day died. Hyperthermia. 5 days later, another died. His body temperature was 108 degrees. Here's what one state senator said. Texans are not motivated to air condition these prisons. These people are sex offenders, they're rapists, they're murderers. And we're going to pay for their air conditioning when I can't go down the street and provide air conditioning to hard-working, tax-paying citizens? Well, that's the thinking. I understand how some people just can't see that. But it is such a clear violation of the prohibition against cruel and unusual punishment. It verily leaps out at you. Okay, while we're south of the Mason-Dixon line, let us head just a little bit east to the great state of Mississippi. Because listen to this. Mississippi is one of those wonderful Republican-dominated states that have, of course, passed a voter ID law in the hopes of disenfranchising people who generally vote for the Democrats. And here's the problem that they have discovered. If you don't have acceptable photo identification to vote, then you need your birth certificate, right, to get that voter ID. That's the way it works in this state, too. Here's the problem, and I don't know if it's a similar problem here. The problem in Mississippi is they will not allow you to get your birth certificate if you don't have a photo ID. And if anyone wanted to know the meaning of Catch-22, well, that is it. Now, even more interestingly, when these jerks in Mississippi passed the voter ID law, they had been told this. They were fully aware that somebody who didn't have proper ID and would need to get their birth certificate would find that they couldn't get their birth certificate because they didn't have the photo ID, but they didn't care because, after all, that's not why they were passing it in the first place. Well, it was why they were passing it in the first place, to keep these people from voting. So that's what's happening in Mississippi. Here are the people who don't have valid photo IDs in Mississippi. Blacks are the biggest group. Latinos are next. 18 to 24-year-olds, seniors. Anyway, as the Republicans would say, screw them. And Tim writes, Tim sends me a leak. About 86% of the Earth species still unknown. 86% unknown. All right. I do have a break to take, right? Damn, that's what I get when I back things up. I'm so sorry. Okay, quickie, and then we'll be back.
Stick around for more with Lynn Cullen Live after this.
Go to bergbargains.com for great deals on tickets to the Science Center, the History Museum, Carnegie Museums, and some of the best restaurants in Pittsburgh. During the month of July, spend $50 on Berg Bargains merchandise and receive a $10 gift certificate to Buca di Beppo. Bergbargains.com. Local deals, local merchants. Bergbargains.com.
Gustavo and Vella wants to thank all of southwestern Pennsylvania, the USA, and the world for helping to liberate his native country of Equatorial Guinea. Equatorial Guinea has suffered 43 years of dictatorship, 43 years of human rights abuses, 43 years of corruption, and 43 years of kleptocracy. Even with $5 billion in oil revenue in 2011, the 700,000 citizens of Equatorial Guinea earn less than $2 per day. A proud Mount Lebanon resident, please help Gustavo and Vella usher in the 21st century by allowing freedom, democracy, and socioeconomic prosperity by the rule of law for the next 43 years and beyond. Email him at presidentandvella@yahoo.com to help free Equatorial Guinea.
Get Lynn Cullen Live on your smartphone. Go to citypapermobile.com now for Pittsburgh City Paper's brand new mobile app. Get the latest restaurant reviews, event listings, movie times, and of course, Lynn Cullen Live on your smartphone. citypapermobile.com.
You're listening to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Once again, here's Lynn Cullen.
Hello. It is, speaking of, 107, 108, what do you think the temperature is in here? It's in the 90s, don't you think?
Absolutely. It's terrible.
Oh, my God. Just when you thought you escaped.
Yeah.
I see Bree has sent me the lethal presidency of Barack Obama. Bree's in Singapore, or maybe Taipei. Can't keep track of him. Bree, I did on the bus coming in read some of that. This is an article in Esquire magazine, and it's sobering. And I was realizing as I read it that when it's your guy, the president, you try to make, I do. If this were George Bush doing this, I'd be screaming about it. It's true. It's true. Hi. Who's that?
Hi, Lynn. PJ from Greensburg.
Hi, PJ from Greensburg.
I was listening to NPR this morning. This goes. I'm going to make the continuum of fecal talk. They actually talked more about probiotics and things on NPR this morning.
They did.
And what I found amusing was that they were talking about how having a digestive system that's in tune can affect your mental state. And they proceeded to use the evidence that animals animals that have irritated bowels
yes
are have a mindset of discomfort. And I thought, well, it doesn't take a scientist to figure that out and to understand that anyone with irritable bowels will have a mindset of discomfort. They're looking into it, but I think it's pretty obvious.
Yes, I would think so. Anyone with irritable bowel syndrome is probably more apt to be irritable.
Well, exactly. So, okay.
Thank you.
Bye.
And further on the fecal front. No, so this Esquire article, guys, honestly, if Bush were doing it, I'd be ranting about it, I think. But it's an interesting issue, and it's about the fact that these drone attacks where they target, and as we did talk about that great piece that the New York Times ran maybe a month ago about how Obama personally signs off on they're essentially death warrants, right, on every person that our drones are targeting and going to take out. He insists on at least, and that actually is good. He's saying, I will take responsibility. But what the article in Esquire points out is that he is increasingly, I don't know about increasingly, but he's killed a number of American citizens in this way. 2 of these Americans were born here, but then they essentially defected, joined Al-Qaeda, and in that regard, are traitors to the country, and you could make I think a pretty strong argument that, he's taken out, screw their citizenship. They obviously said, screw my citizenship, and they're working against us. But the art, and I know some of you might argue that point, but in the article, they talk about how he allowed the killing of the 16-year-old son of one of these guys, one of the Americans that he'd blown away. And the 16-year-old son also was an American citizen. He had been born in the U.S. and then at the age of 7 brought to Yemen. And we took him out, 16 years old. And apparently, according to this article, at least what I read on the bus coming in, is that he was not known to be a working Al-Qaeda member. He was just the son of. We killed his father, and then 2 weeks later, we killed him. So, see, to me, you need a stronger stomach to read articles like that than to read articles about, little flies putting their eggs in an ant's body and then the larvae eating the head off. I mean, you can get squeamish, I understand that, but you can also, there's a higher level of squeamishness that one gets into. And if you're interested in the article, you can get it at esquire.com/features/Obama lethal presidency. Or just Google lethal presidency and you're going to get there. And, I know Potter and I have done a few go-arounds on this subject, with me trying to hold up the defense of Obama. And but I admit, disquieting to read that and provide you with all kinds of uncomfortable moments. I don't know. All it makes me see is that I would so much never, ever want to be the President of the United States and be in a position to have to make these life and death to balance. Do I actively say kill that human being, and am I on good ground? Am I on solid ground, even solid moral ground, doing that? Because if I don't, that person could well kill innocent, totally innocent Americans whom I am sworn to protect. I wouldn't want to have to make those calculations. And it's why I tend to be squeamish about judging. Unless, as I said, it's a Republican doing it, and then I get very judgmental. So that's just me being honest. Okay? Okay. I think that's it for us. I will be back tomorrow. My sister Susan will be joining me. And Wednesday we got Pata. Thursday we got Sokolowski. And Friday we're looking at another weekend. Yay! Have a wonderful, beautiful day.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper, Steel City Media, and its advertisers.